Hi, everybody. Todd, Dammit, Kerns here. Today brought to you by our good friends at Hohner Music. Make some of the best instruments in the whole wide world. Today, I'm very excited to get a chance to talk to a guy I have known about my whole life, but never got a chance to talk to. He's one of the only people that I've done this with that I've not met actually in person. Most people I've met in person, and then I have these conversations. We still have not yet actually physically met. Jean, I could have spent 2 hours talking about his time with the Plasmatics, 2 hours talking about the time he spent writing and recording and producing the Ramones, 2 hours talking about all the time he wrote songs and played, ghost played, and a bunch of stuff with Kiss, and then all his time with Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul. Not to mention all the stuff he's done on his own as a solo artist, and Crown of Thorns, he does stuff with Mickey Free. But I'm a big fan, and he's an amazing individual. Ladies and gentlemen, Jean Beauvoir.
Yes.
We're live. We're live now. Everything we said. It's
That's
good thing
it.
we got all that sketchy stuff out of the way before we press it.
They'll have to see the other version.
Yeah, the blooper reel. I guess.
Uncut.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
Yeah, the director's cut. Yeah,
That's right. The director's cut. That's
No, I'm so stoked to be talking to you. It's so funny because it's like within the circles that I run in. I was just saying that I said this. The best analogy was I was saying to my wife. I was saying how like it seems like every restaurant that I love and I go to, Jean Beauvoir had something to do with that restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like all I could, like I said to you in a text, I said I could spend 2 hours talking about your time and you just the stuff you did with the Ramones. I could spend 2 hours talking about the Kiss chapter. I could spend 2 hours talking about the Plasmatics, Little Steven, all that stuff, because it's so vast to me. It's so hard to, and then when I actually sit down and look at your resume, that's when I get even more overwhelmed. Like I don't even know where to start with this because it's like. Because you've done
it's been
so
a lot
much.
of years, so you got to keep busy.
That's what I appreciate.
You got to do more stuff.
That's what I appreciate the most is because anybody who thinks, because I do this mostly just because I think there's some kid in Des Moines or, somewhere who wants to do this, what you and I do, but they just, how would I go about doing that? And I always want to, there's nothing easy about being a musician. You got to hustle, you know what I mean? And when I see a guy with your skills, the ability to kind of like, you could play bass on this. I'll play guitar on this. I'll sing this. I'll write. I'll produce. It's a lot of hats. It's a lot of hats.
It's a lot of hats. It's something that I had in my mind right from the very beginning that I said I wanted to try to have parallel careers because live might go away, this might go away, that might go. And when I first started, I was in a junior high school rock band, first of all, like 14 years old. And when I went out, I had to bounce around from different instruments. If we needed a bass player, I was the bass player. If I needed a drummer, I was the drummer. If I was, or whatever. So that's where it all kind of started. And then after that, when I really got into the business, I said, I really want to be a solo artist, but at the same time, how would it be to be able to produce records and have a career that, is a good career doing that, and then also as a songwriter and also as an artist, separate. So you can have different careers. And that was like, you make life goals for yourself.
You literally have
this is what I'd like to accomplish.
You literally have the career of about 5 to 10 people. You know what I mean? So, it's staggering. It's almost like I literally, when I go into this, I think, Jean Beauvoir, I've been dying to talk to Jean Beauvoir. This will be great. I have a million things I want to ask him.
Perfect. Pronunciation.
From Canada, Daddy-O.
So that's what it is. Okay.
No, I don't speak French at all, but I could fake my way through a few things, but especially like, good French names. Exactly. But no, I think that, in looking at it, it's one of those things where, like I said, there's so many different areas to tackle, and I hope you're not busy for the next 6 hours. I'm just kidding. No. But, it really takes me all the way back. So then I think to myself, okay, so what is it then? You're born in Chicago, right? Mm-hmm. Which right away immediately is so much cooler than being born in Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm immediately like the music, the thing.
Came out of Canada.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you there. But is that like, did you grow up in Chicago properly then?
No, I was born in Chicago. I literally, I think, lived there 2 years.
Oh,
And
okay.
then we moved to Rhode Island,
Okay.
for a bit. That was really short too. Then we moved to Queens.
Okay. Okay.
And then, that was just a culture clash. My dad, is from Haiti,
Yeah.
conservative. My mom's really conservative. She's like the daughter of an ambassador, whole different world. And we got to, Queens. I was fighting for lunch money. And, my dad says, this is not working. So he moved us out as far out on Long Island as you could possibly go. It was the last exit.
Wow.
And he said, we're building a house out there. You see that dirt out there? That's where we're building it. So there'll be no craziness, no hip hop, no this, no that. This is what you're gonna be, And that's where I grew up, and that's what I guess where all the rock and roll came from, because I was like the only black kid within 10 miles, So
yeah.
Like, literally, everybody's out there listening to Steely Dan or Led Zeppelin, and you know what I mean, those 8 tracks.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that's what it was all about, and that's how I just got into the whole thing.
And that whole, I mean, New York City is a whole other conversation. When you talk about Chicago, but then New York City, especially when you were in New York City, because when guys like me, when I go to New York City, and I first time I went was early '90s. We played CBGBs. We our van got tagged. It was gnarly down there. Like the Bowery was still like heavy. Now you go down there, and I'm literally sitting in a restaurant going, in the Bowery going like, what was this before? Like I walked by this building a million times back then, and this would have been like some sketchy hovel of some sort, but now it's unrecognizable.
It's so true. It's like, I remember, Paul Stanley from Kiss and I used to spend a lot of time together in New York, right?
Yeah.
And we used to always hang out. And I can remember around that time that you said, early '90s probably, or end of '80s.
Sure.
We were sitting there and said, we got to get out of here. That guy's coming through our cars. Hey man, I'll give you $10. Give me $10 to watch my car. Why? I don't need you to watch my car. Oh, yes, you do.
Otherwise, I'm going to steal your car. Yeah.
And the stuff that was going on, you're so right. It went from that to Disneyland, but it was gnarly. That's right. All in New York. The Lower East Side was,
And it's missed. I mean, in a weird. It's weird because, like, when I, yourself say. What's fascinating to me is sort of backtrack a little bit, because what fascinates me is when I look at your thing, how briefly like these chapters kind of come up, but like I just assumed the fact that you came from like Gary U.S. Bonds at 14 or something like that, where I was like, wait a second, what?
That's right. Yeah.
And then but that transition into like, say, the Plasmatics, where does that even come from? Is that a New York thing that just kind of like,
I can't. People plan out their lives.
Yeah.
Almost like girls plan out their lives. I'm gonna find a guy who has a good job, and he has this, and he has that, and then she ends up with one of us.
Yeah, you tricked her. Yeah,
exactly. But when I kind of just went up from the Long Island situation with the rock band, the school rock band. I ended up leaving there. And Gary U.S. Bonds, he found me out in a club, actually playing on Long Island.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy.
And you were playing bass at this point.
Bass at the time.
Okay, yeah.
I had a band called Topaz, and we used to play the whole circuit, young. I mean, I had older guys in the band. I was the youngest. I was saying I was 18.
What kind of music is this? Sorry to what kind of music is this?
It was pretty much top 40 kind of stuff, but I play my originals. I always played my originals right from the very beginning.
Right. Yeah.
So we were doing that, and his manager just comes up and says, "Hey, you want to go on the road?" And I said, "Yeah, sounds good to me." And he says, "How old are you?" I said, 18. And he said, "Okay." So he said, "Listen, I work with Gary U.S. Bonds and a lot of these types of acts and Dick Clark and all that stuff. We'd like you to, just come to the house on Saturday, play with, Gary, and see if he likes you. And if so, which I think he will, that's it." I was like, wow, this came out of the blue. This is completely out of the blue.
Wow.
And so I did that, went to his house. He saw me, he nicknamed me Boo Boo. He was like, "Hey, Boo Boo, what's happening?" Okay. So, I don't rehearse. I don't do this. I don't do that. Basically, you got the gig. You just come in, you hire and fire as you want. Meet me in Florida, Sarasota, matter of fact, the first gig I think was.
Wow.
And he says, and just do the thing, and that's it. You'll do a set on your own, and then you'll do my thing. And so it was a great learning experience, because literally he would do things spontaneously. You just get
Sure.
up on stage and all of a sudden, we're gonna do this song. I didn't know it. So I have to like really paying attention and call chords out to the band. It was crazy.
Wow.
But it was a good thing. It was we played all the Dick Clark shows, we played, everywhere, coliseums all around America.
Yeah.
Toured a lot and a lot of hotel things, those hotel things that those artists
Sure.
used to do where you'd stay for a month. And
Yeah.
that was cool though at that age.
Sure.
And stay in
Absolutely.
a beautiful hotel like a Frenchman's Reef in St.
Yeah.
Thomas. You know what I
Absolutely,
mean?
yeah,
And you're
yeah.
there, you can eat all you want, you can hang out by the pool, and then you go and do a few sets at night. I was
Wow.
like, this is the life for me.
Hell yeah. What did mom and dad Beauvoir think about
They
you
they
just-
didn't think. My dad kicked me out at 15.
Oh, okay. So there you go.
That's
go.
what-
Is that because of that damn
Yeah.
rock and roll?
Yeah. I did, he found out my age and he called my mom. And then one day he calls me to a room at the hotel. He says, boo boo, I found out that you're not 18 and you're going back
Oh,
to
no.
school. I'm like, I don't want to go to school. This is the life for me. I'm here. I found it. What do I go to school for?
That kind of is your school, really. Yeah, yeah. You're learning more than you ever would in school, let's be honest.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah,
I hate
yeah,
to say it. And he said, no. And then he actually worked out a great deal where he would call the parents if he needed me on a Thursday for a long weekend or something else in Chicago, like the Playboy Club or whatever it would be. And the teachers were fans of this. So they'd say,
That's so cool.
So that was really cool. And I'm not saying it was all a cush life out there, because remember, I was the only black kid out there. So
Right.
I went through everything. I built things to the point where kids liked you and they liked the fact you were playing rock and roll and you could do some sports, and like this brought kind of a new dimension
Sure.
to them.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, of course, you had the naysayers who were like, didn't want you there, So you had that, like mostly dads of girls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
you ever call here again.
Oh no. I can't imagine.
So from there, I guess the whole Gary U.S. Bonds thing, I also moved on to Flamingos. That was a whole other thing.
That's
I was
right,
really
yeah.
into the Flamingos for a while. And we also played, all over the place. That was St. Thomas. The other one, Gary, was Bermuda and things like that. And we just played around. Then I moved to New Jersey for a little while and was doing like a cover band thing on the side besides what I do with them and everything.
Sure.
And then I said, you know what, maybe I better start looking into college or, really get things back together. So that I've got that as backup, getting logical for a minute.
Right.
And then I come home one day and my apartment is burnt down. The building burnt down. Some woman lit a cigarette in her bed or whatever
Oh
she
my.
did. Everything I had was gone. The little I
Oh
had.
no.
So I'm like sitting there with like $120, which I got from the city, and I went and bought a shot motorcycle jacket over on Canal Street.
That's good use of your money.
Exactly right. For some reason, I was like, I'm a punk. I want to be in this world. Good.
Yeah.
Right, that's exactly right. But I did that, and I was literally living like nowhere. I was living in a little motel room on Route 3, those kind of hotels where guys take the secretaries, at lunchtime.
Yeah.
I mean, like literally, it was really bad. And some friends, helped me out as I'm trying to do all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, the Plasmatics. I actually joined a band called NYN, which actually stood for New York Niggers. Actually,
Wow.
They were down there on the Lower East Side, just some band practicing in a really, cruddy little place down there.
Sure, yeah.
I became their lead singer, and the first gig we had was opening for the Plasmatics, who were just starting
Right.
out at my father's place, I believe, on Long Island. And then
Really?
from there, that's how I went from Gary U.S. Bonds to the Plasmatics.
It's a bizarre transition. I mean, when you
Very
think,
bizarre.
but in fact, music itself was transitioning so quickly back then. I mean, the fact that punk rock had kind of presented itself, and especially in New York City. I mean, it was kind of really the epicenter as far as the United States goes. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. There was a lot of cool stuff going on because the whole CBGB scene and everything.
100%.
Everybody, Ramones, all the punk bands would just be hanging out there. I just felt really comfortable in the world.
I bet, and that's what
I was always an outcast in the other world. So
I understand, yeah. And when you talk about Manhattan back then, I mean, the fact that young people like yourself and artists and musicians and people like that could live fairly affordably. well, I don't know how affordable it was really, but I mean, I know, but I mean, it was a hell of a lot more affordable than you can now. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
but,
well, that's true. Especially if you were willing to go, live downtown in one of those, New York. It's like
yeah, absolutely.
2-bedroom apartment is like there's a shelf here and
yeah,
there. And it was the 2 bedrooms. That's a bedroom. That's a bedroom.
yeah, you're in the bathroom and the kitchen at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think that, it really, that kind of element and that kind of energy really kind of spawns stuff like that. So when stuff like the Plasmatics happens, and I think it's so funny because, I knowing that I was going to be talking to you, I had to go back and just revisit all of that stuff. And it was so funny to me because it was like, how like cutting edge punk rock was in general. And Wendy was sort of like the 6th degree black belt of that shock rock, like just a whole other level, and it was sort of like in listening to it, there's such an art aspect to it. It's such a, like it's like an art show almost involved in the music. In
Which it was actually.
Yeah.
That's right. It was like a visual exhibition. It was an art show pretty much, just a form of art.
Exactly. And exhibition is the best word for it but I mean, in reality, with yourself being, by that point, you're already a very schooled musician by that point. Did you find punk rock to be sort of was it somewhat enamoring to kind of have that be all about the animal energy of it and not so much about the technical ability of your instrument per se?
You know what? It's something I talk about quite a lot. People don't, you play bass, obviously.
Yeah.
So have you ever listened to any of the parts on?
Oh, yeah. And actually going back to that now, I understand so much more of what's going on in there than just the barrage of the attack.
That's what I mean.
So there's
if
some
you listen to songs like Master Plan or some of those bass things were actually more intricate than I ever came across later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's including little Steven Springsteen, all that kind of stuff. I mean, because first of all, you're playing it at a speed that's ridiculous, and you're still, I try to like incorporate like Motown kind of things to it, boom, 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 all kind of to just throw it in there, and you're doing that while you're jumping around and sweating and things are blowing up, and it was pretty hard.
And you're playing with gloves on too.
On top of it,
yeah, you're wearing gloves, which I thought was always impressive. Yeah. No, but it's funny because
I found that it wasn't as easy as people think. It was one of the most challenging, but even just for the speed of it, but drummers.
Yeah, exactly. But what you were doing is certainly beyond what sort of other bands were doing within a similar type of music, or I don't know if there's anything really similar to the Plasmatics, but I think bands that are playing punk rock, we're not trying to put Motown into the bass lines,
Exactly. I hear you. I know that's right. A lot of people
just ride the route. Just ride the route. Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah,
like
totally.
those stadium solos we call them.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it is. And I'm assuming that took you around in a whole different scene as far as because. And that's the interesting thing about punk rock is that punk rock sort of seems in my memory, it just seems like it was just this gigantic chapter. But when I look back now, it seems to go pretty quickly from punk rock into the new wave thing, very quickly. Like it's like, Teenage Head or something, or not, I'm sorry, the Talking Heads or something like that becomes sort of more the norm, and where, the sort of more harder edge stuff kind of becomes more underground again, which
That's right. It's funny you mentioned Talking Heads because in the end of the day, the manager who I ended up with for the US managed the Talking Heads at the same time.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
He really, like
so is the next thing for you after the Plasmatics right into working with Little Steven?
Yes. At that point, I really wanted to move on. I felt that the Plasmatics were going in kind of the wrong direction for what they were. I just felt that the band was made up of unique elements for one thing. Which I think that even the manager missed in the end of the day is that, I like when the band had the most success, was at that period of time, and I'm not tooting my own horn or anything. Let me close this just here. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But you know how it is.
No, I know. Yeah.
You do that. There's something that creates a certain magic. And sometimes you don't know why,
Exactly.
But he hit on something when we had, Wendy, myself, Richie. Richie was 6'7" or something,
I know.
wearing nurses' outfits and stuff. So
tutus. Yeah.
That's right. To a whole group of people.
Yeah.
Who are not necessarily interested in Wendy as much,
Right.
There were no black guys playing any kind of rock, since Hendrix.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So that opened up. I'd watch people in the audience, and all people, whether it be black or other colors or whatever it might be, they felt more comfortable coming
Sure.
to a show. They were rockers and punk rockers inside. Even
Yeah.
when Williams, a TV host, told me I was that girl, the one that doesn't want to, let it out. But finally, when there's a guy up on stage, they're like, okay, I can do this now. Go
Sure.
listen to what I really want to listen to. So it caused a big deal. And that's why in those years, 80 to 81, the Fridays, all the big TV shows, all that stuff, why the band really exploded.
Yeah.
I think, and of course, Wendy was the captain of the ship, but you know what I mean? But it was that mixture. And then once that went away and Richie was gone, I was gone, you saw things kind of went by the wayside.
Well, I always thought it was interesting too, because Wendy kind of like, there was a whole Gene Simmons period with her.
Right.
And then you were doing stuff with Paul. And I thought it was really interesting, like in retrospect now, it sort of seems a lot more, but I thought it was really interesting, like, well, I want to get through the little Steven chat before I get into your Paul Stanley stuff, because I think we've had very in-depth conversations about the Kiss records, because I play with Bruce Kulick, so the non-makeup Kiss is an ongoing conversation, and we've always kind of landed back on how that Asylum record is really special in the songwriting. I think a lot of where Paul's kind of like at the peak of his, his voice is really strong, his writing's really strong, and to see your little stamp in there again, see, like that restaurant I go to, Jean Beauvoir made this meal. This is delicious, But let me go to the little Steven thing really quickly, because I have to say that I was obsessed with that, especially Voice of America, because it was so, like, I remember, like, I had videotaped a concert. I don't remember where it was taped. I meant to go back. What's that?
Rock Palast?
Probably, yeah.
Was it that European TV show?
With Gary Tibbs on bass.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And it was just always one of those ones I was obsessed with. The band looks bitchin', long coats, and I was just obsessed with that kind of, especially in a time when the image of a band is just like, it sort of goes hand in hand with the music. Taking into account that over the year 2020, what a soundtrack the album Voice of America actually makes. It's like listening to it, it put a whole new paint job on things. As I listen to the record, I go, this is like for right now. And I don't know if even Steven knows that that's, how
I hear
pertinent that is. Yeah.
It's very true,
And then there's such a heavy political aspect to it, but at the same time, it's sort of married to just great rock and roll. And your imprint once again, because you're playing guitar and bass on that record, right?
Yeah, I was mostly bass on that record, but I played guitar live on that record because
that's what
I wanted to play guitar more on stage, and I wanted to do a solo record, so I was like trying to move on, if you know.
Of course,
but
your bass line on what's the song? Justice. That bass line is nuts, dude. There's a lot of slapping going on and stuff, and I was just like, I didn't realize this is quite as intricate as it actually is. It's like, that's one of the things I appreciate about a record like that, is because I think, when you're younger and you're into music, you're not really kind of able to kind of like take it apart and go, this is a reggae song within a punk rock record or whatever, and this is a pop song, and then you get something like Checkpoint Charlie is like this kind of like,
that was a
dude,
great
your voice at the end of that song is so perfect. That kind of all the walls, that whole thing is so beautiful. It's like, it's just one of those records that to me, it's like, it really sort of, when I go through my like top 20, once in a while I'll pull out like things like that, and people go, oh wow, Voice of America, Little Steven, and I'm like, yeah, dude, that record is just, it's really important to me. But I think that it must have been really interesting for you, because Steven was coming off of E Street Band and all that kind of stuff, and I know he was in a different place as far as whatever that is.
It was, I saw something really special in him at the time, because when I left the Plasmatics, I was adamant about I wanted to be a solo artist. That was it. I didn't want to do anything else. And the first person everybody who contacted me was Prince.
Oh wow!
Come play bass in his thing.
Wow!
And also to basically he produced a solo record for me.
Right.
They had it all mapped out. They knew the numbers. And we're gonna do the same thing as you. Numbers
wow.
And everything. And he Yeah, everything was. I didn't take that because I kind of felt, at that time, back to this whole. I hate to have to talk about it, but this racial thing where radio wasn't playing blacks on. They weren't. There was, especially. It's almost like there was a type. Black
Yeah.
Florida, Columbia. Then you had the black guys who were kind of mixed, like me, Prince,
Right.
Kravitz, Slash. These people, and they
Sure.
weren't. There was almost a limit of how many were going to be played. This year it's
Interesting.
going to be Prince. The others,
Right.
get it.
Right. Yeah.
And so you were kind of, I kind of felt, which I regretted later, that almost like he was trying to get rid of the competition at the time, because at the time you never knew what was going to happen.
Interesting. That's an interesting
And
perspective.
I looked at it. I think I was wrong in the end of the day after I saw he passed away. I was so sad about that because he made me several offers over the years, and I finally realized that maybe he just wanted, somebody to respect to create with, to collaborate with, to bounce it. Maybe that's what he wanted. You know what I mean? So that was a whole interesting thing at the time. So we went from, let's see, and the funny thing is, then after that, the same manager who found me out on Long Island was working with Bruce Springsteen, Little Steven, and still managing Gary U.S. Bonds.
Oh, wow.
They were getting ready to do a record called This Little Girl Is Mine that Bruce Springsteen and Steven produced.
Interesting.
I just left the Plasmatics at the time. I said no to him. I mean, there were a few people bouncing around. Billy, Island, Steve. We were good friends. We were hanging around. I was trying to help them find a bass player. You know what I mean? They were like, why don't you just do the thing already? I was like, nah, I want to do this. And I had a couple of, pretty good offers, but I was really against it. But Steven somehow kind of convinced me. He came back around and he said, listen, bottom line is you're going to go around to all the labels like you've been doing. They're all going to turn you down. He said,
wow.
And that's what's been happening. That's what was happening. They were like, if you want to blow up things, we'll sign you. But if you want to sing, you said?
You mean blow up things like Wendy was blowing up things?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's pretty funny. So it's a joke almost, I mean, he said, but then again, if you come in and do this with me, with the whole Bruce connection, everything we have, people are going to see you go from the Plasmatics to that, and you're going to get respect. And then people are going to start looking at you differently, and then you have a better shot at getting where you want to go. So,
well, yeah, I don't think he was wrong. I mean, again, like, I don't mean when people kind of associate a group like the Plasmatics, sometimes your musicality and your ability is going to get overshadowed by exploding televisions and everything else that's going on. And then once Steven's thing kind of came out, and I did like the fact that he presented it as a band. Like, it always seemed like
he really did.
And it never was just Steven. It was, you guys were all there. How did Gary Tibbs come in? This is another conversation, because it was actually Gary. The Adam and the Ants connection was the sort of like, have you heard this other thing that Gary's doing? I go, what is this? And then, hey, Jean Beauvoir's in this. Because I wasn't really an E Street guy at the time. I was a kid. I was into like loud, rock and roll. And Bruce, as much as I appreciate and love Bruce now, at the time, it was kind of like just wasn't in my wheelhouse. So I knew who Steven was, because he was, in many ways, one of the most visible people on stage when Bruce was playing. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah.
And then, but so when once we got into that record, it was kind of like, and then Gary Tibbs, of course, he's not on the record, but how was he living in the U.S. at this time? For those that don't know, I'm gonna look at the imaginary audience right now, because Gary Tibbs was a member of Adam and the Ants.
Yeah, that's right. And also Roxy Music.
And Roxy Music, that's right. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how
he's a very skilled player. Yeah.
He was great. I mean, I loved him. We got along like, you get it. Because that was the time where I said, I don't want to play bass going out. I had played bass on the record, like you said, but I wanted to, and he just fit right in and was really, he was very good bass player for one thing. He was great. He could sing, he could move,
Yeah.
He just had the vibe. So but I don't remember how exactly he got in the band. Like, where do we find him?
It's often one of those things, like just some guys just happen to be there and then they're in the band, and that's how
right.
Yeah. It was just always kind of a weird thing that I always wanted to ask, where did Gary Tibbs come from the end? It's just appeared in this. It's so weird, but
yes, it was him, and then we had Dave Rosenthal, right? Was he playing live with us at the time, the keyboard player?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Now, how soon does that go into your solo thing? Because I know you. So, how long were you hanging around with Steve? That was like a couple of years.
So, Steven, let's say that was right after the Plasmatics, probably about 81, 82, right? So, 82, 83. So, let's say I did that with Steven. probably a couple of years. I did 2 records, right? Men Without Women.
Men Without Women, also great. Also
and
great.
a bunch of tours. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So at that point, and I was aching. So I think about 2 years.
Okay. And then the next chapter is you solo.
Yes.
Cobra soundtrack, all that thing.
All that stuff. Well, as we were going along, then I met, Paul and I started doing some writing on the side. I was doing some Ramones. Ramones was about right when my solo thing hit. So we spent a lot of time with Steven. We worked a lot. So we were touring a lot. We spent a lot of time in the studio, a lot of time.
Yeah.
The records took a fair amount of time. It was
were all those done in New York, or are they
Power Station and Hit Factory? Pretty much. Oh,
cool. That's so cool. Like when I hear those names, I immediately see that giant list of albums that were done in those places.
They were great studios. They were
totally,
and we spent a lot of time in those.
And were you already associated with the Ramones at this point? Is that how this sort of?
I knew them from the Plasmatics days.
Okay,
like I mentioned before, all these people down at all these these clubs, CBGBs, and everything, we all hung out, so we all ran into each other.
Of course.
So from Steven, after I finally said, listen, I really have to go pursue my thing. It's just gotten to that point.
Sure.
And so I went back out there to go try to hit that. And it was still difficult. Matter of fact, still wasn't really working. A couple of almost somebody from EMI wanted to sign me, who actually signed Steven, but when certain things didn't go where he wanted, then he wasn't that interested. You know the deal.
Sure.
Especially record deals and situation. Yeah. And as I was about to leave, it's a guy named Howard Bloom, who was a great publicist at the time. Really well known. He's a friend, just a friend. We go out and have lunch and this and without. I'm not sure if we really even work together that much. Maybe a couple, you know what I mean? But sometimes friends in the industry like this.
Sure.
And one day when I was just about ready to leave, I didn't have a deal in America, and ABBA had offered me a singles deal in Sweden.
Wow.
I was about to go and make that deal. He told me, before you go, I want you to meet this guy, Gary Kurfürst. And this guy, Gary Kurfürst, he manages Talking Heads, he manages the Ramones, and he was one of the first guys to bring Hendrix over. He's a very well guy, and he likes, crazy things. You might be just right for him. So I said, yeah. Okay, I'll go meet him. I went and met him, and he was just great. He listened to this one demo I had that had just, I was playing everything, singing everything. He said, I love this. Go to Sweden, don't sign anything, and then I'll call you, and it's going to be within the next couple of weeks, and I'll get you a deal.
Wow.
I said, you're going to give me a deal? I've been trying to get a deal for you. You think?
Yeah.
And he said, just go. And I went. Next thing you know, he calls me up and he said, listen, I'm sending you a ticket. Richard Branson loves your stuff, and he wants to meet you on his riverboat day after tomorrow. Get on the plane.
Wow.
Whoa.
The riverboat's in England, I'm assuming.
That's right. It was in England.
Okay, yeah.
They had Virgin Records at the time.
Sure, yeah.
And then so I went and I met with them, and then that was it. He just right there and said, okay, you got it. And then that was the beginning of the whole solo thing. So that was a very interesting time in my life. Things weren't really great before that. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So now I meant to ask you this because I haven't really had listening to the music in the 21st century is like, I miss looking at the liner notes. I want to know what Jean played on this record, because in those days, were you predominantly playing a lot of the instruments, or were you kind of like
solo records? I played pretty much everything.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
I did everything. I mean, I had a very few exceptions.
So you were Lenny Kravitz before Lenny Kravitz. See, that's
yeah, I guess so. And I guess Prince and I were kind of neck and neck at that time.
There you go. Yeah.
But it was I played everything on the records, and I'd have like solo guitars.
Sure.
I mean, everyone would play a couple of solos. Actually, Mick Jones from Foreigner had come in, but it was like because he happened to be in the house. He said, "Oh, you're working down there." So he came down one day, and I said, "Pick up a guitar." He picked it up, blum, threw a solo on there. That
amazing.
Kind of
That's amazing.
It was who would, add some things to the records. That got a little after a while, and I started forming bands. You know what I mean? Sitting and doing everything by yourself all the time can get exhausting.
Well, I mean, it can make you crazy, is what it can do. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that one guy you can bounce an idea off of, and he goes like, well, what about this? And you go, yeah, that's better, or whatever it is. It's it's always nice to have. Two heads are better than one, as they say.
That's right. Yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
So did you? So around this time with Gary Kurfürst and all that, is that what leads to your working with the Ramones?
Oh,
I assume so.
as
Yeah.
far as the Ramones, that was all in there in the
Yeah.
thing, because Gary one day came over to me and just said, listen, why don't you produce the Ramones? And I was like, "Oh, yeah, why not?" We kind of like, he's just said, I'd be interested to see where it goes. You know what I mean? And
I'm actually like, because it's one of those things as a Ramones fan, you start to learn how, how complicated that whole, we're talking, is this still with Tommy or is this Marky? It must be Marky at this time, wasn't it? Marky
no,
Ramone
at
on
this
drums?
time it was Richie.
Richie, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah. Pet Sematary and all that.
But I knew Marky, I knew Tommy,
Yeah.
I knew them all. But this was with Richie.
And how did the inner workings work for you? Like when you're dealing with, I mean, we always hear how, polarized Johnny and Joey, and then everything else is kind of in the middle. But did you find that to be the case? Did you find Johnny was fairly? I know Johnny was well. At least his reputation is that he's sort of like, takes charge kind of thing. But I know he was also not shy about like not playing guitar on certain things if they thought
That's
somebody
right.
else. Yeah. Let him play the guitar if it's better or whatever. Yeah.
Talking about that with Johnny, I can remember doing a couple of songs or somewhere. I'd say, "We almost got this. Why don't you do another take?" He says, "I'm doing one more take." After that, it was like literally that way.
That's a Johnny Ramone right there. This Mosrite copy in the back is a Johnny Ramone. But
it was very difficult. I'll tell you, I was pretty young too when you think about it. You had a lot of responsibility because as a producer, Gary's depending on you. The record label is depending on you. Seymour Stein, and they didn't really care what the band wanted. Like you got to get there and make a record. It's almost like nobody wanted to get involved in the whole thing.
Right.
You'll go do it, deal with them.
And there's the ongoing pressure of like, one of these times it's going to be a hit. And I know that band was like, at the legends that they are to most of us, they were still under the pressures of like, every time they went in to record a song, it's like, this one's going to be a hit. You know what I mean? And you were the only one that really got any radio play for those guys.
Yeah, Pet Sematary was the highest charting song. I think number 4. So it's like, but they had a lot of other great songs. But
of course, yeah.
True. So it was the combination, I think, and they were all. I mean, it was difficult to deal with them because they were completely polar opposite. Johnny really wanted to keep the band in this direction, didn't want to alter.
Right.
And as far as Joey's really emotional, and he wanted to. Oh, I love piano, I love strings, I love this, I love that. Can we get that on the record, John? Or which I already liked.
Yeah.
That's how he felt about it. Dee is that. Good lyricist. He was he's a deep guy.
Yeah.
Dee.
Yeah.
And even though he seemed like, I really loved him. We got along really well. And he, and these guys would call me anytime, all night, whatever, all day. And it involves everything: girlfriends, this, that. You know what I mean?
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was really quite, the undertaking to deal with them for that amount of time and to try to get a balance that would make everybody happy. Everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. You're not talking about just the 4 guys. You're talking about managers and label and like it's. The producer really has a very. It can be a terrible job. It's straight up. It can be sometimes very uncreative. Like it can really take the fun out of making music. Yeah.
I'd say more times than not, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Because you have a lot of because it's a lot of work. It's and a lot of diplomacy and trying to get so there was a lot of that, but at the same time we all got along great just the same. So it wasn't like there was Johnny and I, it's Joey and I. We always kept a good balance with everybody. Even like Richie, he had this song, Somebody Put Something in My Drink.
Yeah.
And people weren't really that into it. I mean, the other band's like, oh no, another songwriter now.
Yeah. Like, that's a great song. That's a classic Ramones song.
I love it. I love it. And that song, I just said, no, let's do that song. Let's really make it great. Let's do that song. And so really supported them a little bit against the other guys. You know what I mean? It's like to make sure that he got some input.
Which is also the producer's job to not pick teams and just kind of what's best for this album or this project. Yeah.
That's right.
And and you would have been like their age. Maybe were you younger than those guys?
Yeah, I was younger than they were.
That's so funny that they would just acquiesce to your producer, sure, let's listen to the young guy.
Funny when you think about it, it's true. It's like maybe you were more mature than I am now. No, we don't always grow up, us rockers.
Well, that's true, and it's for the better. You don't want to. I've watched people grow up, and it doesn't seem fun.
It's not all cracked up to be.
I think we're better off. Exactly.
You know what I mean? But it was an interesting chapter. By the way, I am writing a book, so it was an interesting chapter of my life.
You must write a book. You have to write a book because I mean, like I say, it's like I would read that book immediately because, as I say, all these chapters that I'm talking about, it's like we could do an entire 2-hour conversation about your time at KISS. And as you know, we may as well go into that now because you just did a thing in Florida playing. I was doing it streaming with Bruce, but your relationship, right? Yeah, exactly. We played together kind of, but
we did finally.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a weird thing that your association with KISS will just go on for the rest of your life, no matter what you do. It's in a good way. I mean, you made at a time when it's funny now because in watching KISS play on New Year's in the makeup and the fire and all the stuff. And then we talk about, because I play with Bruce, there's that whole focus on that non-makeup era that some people they came into the band at that age, that they came into meeting KISS in that period. They didn't really invest in the previous thing because they were too young or whatever. Mm-hmm. So things like Asylum are really important records. And I think the songwriting is amazing. And I think that KISS has never been secretive about who played on what. So your name always comes up on,
Yeah, it does. And, at the beginning, it wasn't really meant to be that, it's like, I don't think it was credited at the beginning. It was just like really casual. It's like, like I said, Paul and I would just hang out. I interrupted something you're trying to get through. I don't want you to lose your thought.
No. I'm basically trying to open this door and off we go into KISS land.
Good one.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
No,
but it wasn't like a big thing. Like there wasn't like
it was just happened. It's just like kind of like. Paul and I would be like hanging out and he'd say, oh, I'm going to be in the studio from 2 to 4, as if we were in LA hanging out. And then let's go down to Melrose, get something to eat or a Petit Four. And then let's do this, let's do that. And that's okay. So I'd show up there an hour or two before something and he'd say, oh, by the way, we're doing this song. Pick up the bass. So it was literally that casual. Or because I played on the demos.
Right.
And it had a certain feel. And, even Gene also was always very open. I mean, people always ask me, well, how did Gene feel about you playing bass on the record? He didn't care. He was kind of...
No, when you look at the history of the band, it's like Eric Carr would play bass sometimes. Bruce Kulick played bass a lot of the time. It would just be kind of like whoever was around and whoever had the right vibe.
No, that's exactly right. That's how they kind of felt. And so it was very easy. It was fun. It was relaxed. But it wasn't really something where I thought you'd be, credited, paid, this, that, all this stuff like, you're being hired to play on the record, which was fine with me because it was an honor, as far as I was.
Of course, yeah.
And that's pretty much how that went. And but we, even when Paul and I met, we didn't write a song for, I think, almost 2 years.
Is that right? Wow.
We literally met in some dance club someplace. It was like, oh, are you the guy from Plasmatics? You're Paul Stanley from KISS, blah, blah, blah. Became friends, hung out really as, just friends.
Yeah.
One day we're hanging at his house and boom, 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 pulls out a acoustic guitar, does a little thing. I go to the bathroom. I hear a melody come out. I got this. He says, I got that. Boom, thrills in the night. And that was the beginning.
I love it. Yeah. It's like, I think that, there's so much to be said. I mean, Paul Stanley, in many ways, in that period, because Gene was so distracted with whatever he was doing, it became sort of like Paul really took the lead on everything in a way. And then the fact that he became the voice and the face for 10 years or something like that, like every single video and every single single that came out was a Paul Stanley song. It seemed like for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's true. Actually,
it's weird. Like when you look back at it, but it's true. I mean, in that era when, it was a strange time, trying to be, because like I said before, it's like people found KISS on the Headbangers Ball or something, just watching like other heavy metal hard rock bands and going, I like this KISS band. Have you heard of KISS? Yeah, they've been around for 15 years already. I was like, but your influence on that. And I think what's interesting, and I've used this analogy before for my friends, because we go to KISS conventions and play things and I go, sometimes it feels like you're at a Star Trek convention and, and the guys in KISS, they're like Shatner and Nimoy. And then, yourself, you would be like, everybody knows exactly who you are, exactly what you did. They know your resume better than you do half the time. You're like, oh yeah, yeah, I did play on that. I'm like on some distant like kids table over in the corner. You know what I mean? Like
I hear you. I hear you. Like, so many years, and then all of a sudden they started talking about it that I literally didn't even remember. I did some interviews where I'd be going to Wikipedia, going, "What's the song I played on?"
Yeah, I don't doubt it. When did that become more of like a public thing? In the 90s? No, probably more like in the 2000s. I think it became more.
Actually, it took a minute, and then I think Paul had put it in a book, and then it came interviews, and then it came out there, and then so on and so forth, and then finally everybody.
And it becomes a badge of honor for people to know like all these inner workings of things and who played on what and who produced this, whose voice is here, and I think that again goes to your credit that again something else that has lasted and lived on for so long. You are there putting your spices in the recipe. Yeah.
I think about it, and I think I'm blessed in ways, because a lot of these things you didn't know was going to happen. Kiss was Kiss, but nobody knew that they'd be doing the biggest tour of their life in 2021. And the Ramones were like, they were the Ramones, but nobody thought they were a lifetime achievement, Grammys, this, or the songs that I did would propel to a level like that. My brain is hanging upside down.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted that song at the time. You know what I mean?
The Ramones are more popular today than they ever were. And it's if they were what's heartbreaking about it is if they were alive, they would be capitalizing on this in some, there would be some sort of reunion thing happening, and it would just be because that t-shirt, you see the logo everywhere. It's just it's a fascinating thing for a band that and I know was traveling around the country in a van for 40 years or something, 30 years.
That's right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just, the manager died, Gary Kerfers, unfortunately, but we spoke about it before he passed. And he was like, would you imagine? Would you think at the time that, the Ramones would have gotten to this level? And we kind of I wish they were here to see this.
I think we always knew, in a way, like I think that those of us who were there and really believed it, you know what I mean? And I think that part of the awesome thing about it was that it still was your thing, back then. All your friends loved the Ramones, but most people didn't really know or didn't really understand. And that's some of the best things about music is when it's yours, I mean, watching it go on and be taken on by the rest of the world is, when you hear Blitzkrieg Bop at sporting events, you're like, wow, dude, if they would have played this in 1983, I don't think anybody would have known what this song is. But now it's a thing. It's culturally relevant. Yeah.
It's exciting. And to me, especially as I'm getting older, I really feel that that's really the most important thing. My thing, the legacy that I leave behind, what mark we make on history, to me, that's the deal. Yeah. Money comes and goes, you know what I mean?
It does.
This is something that if you could leave a mark, an important mark, and feel that you contributed to the world and help certain things happen, whatever. Black people feeling comfortable to have blonde hair or mohawks, or which the time when I had it, it was the most taboo thing on the planet.
Like that, yeah.
New York, I couldn't go to a movie theater, couldn't go anywhere without yelling, fights, screaming, "Oh, you're going against our roots. How could you do this? How could you
really?"
Oh yeah, it was a nightmare for years.
Wow.
Years and years, and then all of a sudden, the whole Fridays TV show, all these TV shows, and then the solo thing, and then all of a sudden everybody started changing. Now every black guy's got a blonde mohawk, this or that, or blue hair, or what I mean. It's pretty amazing.
That's the risk you run when you're so far ahead of the curve, and as you know, it's like you being as visible as you are and being as recognizable as you are. It's sort of one of those things where, I mean, you must have a lot of hats or something to try and blend in when you want to go to the grocery store or something. I don't know.
A lot.
There's a lot of like, that's Jean Beauvoir. Because my friend would tell me stories about how in New York he would see you all the time, just kind of like, and be impossible to like not know who you are because of the hair and the thing. And that to have kind of come across that so early in your life, what would be so identifiable. It's a blessed thing to have found something that you can hold on to as your signature and your trademark for the rest of your life.
Thank you. It's true. Some of these things you don't look at it that way at the time, but
you just get a haircut. Yeah. You just get a haircut.
You realize,
Slash put a top hat on and he's got that going. So
there you go.
That's
right. You wouldn't think that. It's like literally you could just put the top hat out there, literally with like a silhouette of something, and everybody's gonna know who it is.
That's exactly it. He's got that silhouette thing now. Yeah, people know who it is. Yeah. But so then after that, I know I don't want to keep you around for like I'm really kidding when I said we were going to go 6 hours. Well, we'll just go 4. No, I'm kidding. But there's so much like, and that's the other thing too, is that when I look at the actual your list of like NSYNC is in there, I'm like NSYNC. It's like the Pretenders, Debbie Harry. It's like I'm just like I get so overwhelmed by all the things that you have done that it's and not to mention Crown of Thorns. Your stuff with Mickey Free. Mickey Free must be an interesting conversation because of your connection to your almost connection to Prince that happened. Because Mickey, of course, was with his connection with Prince. That must be an interesting conversation for you guys in its own way, I suppose.
Yeah, we've had interesting conversations.
Who knew that guy was such a badass guitar player? I mean, it's sort of like
he's a badass guitar. You wouldn't have really, you wouldn't.
But basically, because the kind of music that he was doing back then wasn't really about forefronting what.
Well, there you go. So he's sitting with Shalimar. You wouldn't think
Shalimar, no, yeah. But his rhythm work, I mean, when you look at Nile Rodgers or any of those guys, it's like
Nile's great.
We always talk about Nile as far as like there's guys where you can watch them shred for a million years, but then when you just watch Nile throw down on a groove, and it's like that to me is just as impressive. Yeah, and I think Mickey has that too. Mickey has that too, I think, and I think I didn't know he could shred like that though. That's what's
it's a feeling thing. He has a feeling. He does. You have certain guitar players that are kind of traditional Berkeley types, so this and that, the scales they're gonna do, and right after a while you try to, be you.
That's
what I'm all about. Just be you, do you. Totally. Self-expression, being, that's something I've always promoted. That's where the Mohawk came from. That's where all that stuff. It's just to self-express and do your thing. Mickey is really good at that. He's got it's a feeling.
Yeah.
Something you can't learn.
No.
I mean, it's something that
it's one of those things where it's like you can't teach that kind of stuff in a way. You could go to Berkeley all you want, but you don't learn feel and soul and be able to put that stuff into your playing, especially guitar playing. Singing in its own way, you can emote a lot more with a vocal.
That's right. That's right.
But guitar is somewhat limiting. So when we go into things like Crown of Thorns, the solo stuff, and into Mickey, which, that's been going on for, a long time. Everything that goes on post Ramones and Kiss, there's a whole lot of stuff that you've done in that period.
Yeah.
And what I always say to guys like you and guys like myself too, because I play guitar, I play a lot of instruments, I sing in this, I'm the background singer in that. I've produced this, and I always say when I look at a guy like you, I go, what is it that at the end of the day would you say you consider yourself? I mean, obviously, as a songwriter alone, you have like an amazing list of stuff. You could have easily just kind of fell into the background and not had and done that. But the fact that because especially as a very proficient bass player, and I always go like, yeah, he's a really great bass player. But then I watch like more modern or newer stuff you're doing, and you're fronting or you're playing guitar, and I go, and I think it's really cool to be able to scratch all those itches when you decide you want to do this or do that. But
I always wanted to be a frontman singer, right from the very beginning. It would be dancing around the living room to Michael Jackson songs with the broom.
Yeah. Well, I still do that.
So it's something I always wanted to do, and somehow I ended up here, there. Like for example, with Plasmatics, when I joined the Plasmatics, I was actually singing in the band.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I play, and he was like, oh, okay. I've always really wanted to do that. So I ended up doing other things, which is even with Little Steven, I was trying to get out of that. And then I kind of got pulled back into it, and then other things. And then finally I just put my hands down and said, that's it. I consider myself, I'd say a singer, multi-instrumentalist. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's not like I wouldn't do other things. It wouldn't be that maybe the right situation would come along and maybe I'd play bass. Depends.
Yeah.
It'd have to be something pretty major, because, to kind of balance out what you do on your own, it's got to be like literally 5 to 10 times.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's right,
There's always a price to do something else. Yeah, like,
exactly.
Like, I don't want to do that, but then someone sends the right.
You want me to not be me? Okay.
yeah. That costs this much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but I think the best, and I think I use it for myself all the time too, is I just say, I guess I'm just a musician, and I think that kind of encapsulates the entire thing, whether you're singing or writing or producing all those things kind of fall in that. And I very much think of you when I think of like when I like, again, looking at your resume is like looking at 10 different guys. Did they get all these like resumes mixed up with like 5 different people? How is this so,
It could be a problem. It could be a problem for me, honestly, because people do get confused sometimes, and
I
they're
know.
trying to wonder, well, really, and it was starting to get diluted. That's why I changed things around, because people would be calling me up. Oh, can you go tour with Crown of Thorns? Can you tour with Voodoo X? Can you tour? And a lot of these records, to be honest with you, I played a lot of this, most of the stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Sure,
the
yeah.
first Crown of Thorns record, we had Tony Thompson, who was amazing.
Monster.
You know, Michael Page played bass, even though I played, a good amount of bass on that record. Mickey played guitars. I played a lot of guitars on the record, but he did most of the solo work.
Yeah.
And pretty much all the vocal work on that particular. But then after that, when Mickey was taken out, it was, unfortunately, we had to let him go.
Right.
Ego comes with those outfits.
Of course.
Even though, we've gone in and out, we've always been good friends, irregardless.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, it's been one of those things. But it's like, so when people call you and say, well, can you get the original lineup of this band to come do these festivals? I'm like, there is no original lineup. I played the record, you know what I mean? Like Voodoo X or something.
Right, yeah.
It's a little bit, almost like a Bon Jovi or Springsteen can feel sometimes when they go tour alone, it has this result. When they go Bon Jovi, it has that result.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, wait a minute. It doesn't make sense.
No.
So that became a problem a little bit. And I said, you know what, before it gets too late, I better just put everything in one place now and start to actually educate people on other things that you've done. Because people would say, oh, you produced a Ramone. Oh, you actually did that song for Cobra? I had no idea. And then this was over there, and they'd put as different people, and it dilutes your brand.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's a good problem to have. I know what you mean, but even for myself, because I do multiple projects, and eventually people start to kind of like, it starts to confuse people that,
Yes.
What does this guy do? Like, and I think that you got to be careful of it. But at the same time, I would never, and I think for yourself, I can't imagine you ever looking back on something and thinking, well, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't. I mean,
No.
you might, it all works in the giant puzzle that you've put together of your life.
It does.
Yeah.
I passed up some things that you wonder, like the Prince stuff I mentioned. I don't know for to actually do a Michael Jackson video with Steve Stevens, I believe it was. I think Tony was also asked to do that one, and my manager turned it down because he said, like, once you're Michael Jackson's bass player, that's what you are.
Wow. Yeah.
You're not getting out of that one. So, so he was like, I don't know if that's the best idea when you just signed, you have all these things going. It's not for the money. It's that, well, people will know you, but
right. I know what you mean. And he's not wrong, because it's good to figure out what you want to do and focus on that. And I think in reality, it sounds like you very much had a plan. I think everybody has a plan. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So you had a plan, you had a focus, and just all these other things kind of came along. Opportunities came along the way that you.
And you try to stick to the plan as best you can.
And it's not a mistake to, open this door that, is unlocked and see what's beyond that and have these experiences. I think, like you say, it's like now getting ready to write a book. It makes for a hell of a book.
I like challenges too. I've always liked to be able to prove to myself that you can do something. So you do a Ramones record or something, say, I want to do that, and
or acting, for that matter. Like
I acted a movie that came out not too long ago. Same kind of thing. I do some acting here and there. My book will tell you I missed some great opportunities on that page, but everybody makes little mistakes here.
What are you gonna do? Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? But it's like I believe in challenges to be able to do different things. Like an NSYNC. I also believe in breaking barriers. I've always believed in that, and
sure.
That's how this world is going to move forward. If people don't go to other places and learn from other people, whatever it might be, in music or something, working with producers or writers that write for bands like NSYNC and this and that, it's a very different system. That's another skill. So
it really
for
is.
those who learn background vocals and vocals from back in the day, things that very few people know what to do. It's like ABBA, for example.
Absolutely,
you learn from that, and it kind of fills your mental Rolodex. As I say,
I agree.
And so all these things I found, like, it wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago, my publishing company told me, don't really waste your time writing so much American songs right now. He said, because with streaming and everything going on, you're not going to really make it that much from it unless you have the single. And I know the
Right.
calculations, I know the business pretty well. And you look at everything and say, a track on Beyonce's record, not going to pay for gas for a couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah. Honest with you, know? And he says, you got to get into this K-pop thing. It's the greatest. They sing in 5 different languages. They sell all over the world. And so I went to Sweden, did some co-writing with some other people, and all of a sudden I ended up with 2 K-pop hits.
Amazing.
#1, which came back here and ended up #1 on Beauvoir from a K-pop record, And so it was really weird, but it's very interesting. And they're singing in Korean. It's a completely different thing.
Absolutely.
But it adds a little bit to that just do you thing. And it also shows people that you can do different things. You can break barriers. You can do whatever you want to do. Now's a great example of that, for example.
Yeah. No, I think it really kind of makes you kind of feel like in an industry like this is it's kind of like no one really knows anything ever. It's kind of what it makes me feel like sometimes. Like you think you got something figured out, and then the trend shifts, and then all of a sudden that what you're kind of like. I watched artists do that, or musicians, my friends of mine do that, where they would adjust to whatever's happening. By the time they've adjusted to what's happening has already changed. So
it happens all the time.
You kind of have to do what you do. You kind of have to get a blonde mohawk and stick with it, and that's your thing.
I don't believe in that jumping on bandwagons. I so many people do that. I write with so many people, and a lot of the people that right away, okay, let's put up to this track, or let's put up to that track, And I'm like, no, let's.
Writing is a lot like that because because writing is very, it is sort of like you're writing for different artists, and
that's right. That's right.
And like you say, imagining writing for a Korean pop group 20 years ago, you would have said, "What are you talking about?"
Until you see them on TV and on the charts here after the fact,
they're massive, dude. It's a huge thing. Yeah, it's
K-pop. What's going on.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's and I've been to Korea on several occasions to watch.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We've been playing there since 2010. So you go over there and you watch like that thing organically happening there, and you go, "Oh, this is really huge over here." Then you watch it slowly, kind of
coming here,
growing everywhere.
Done.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, they got the dolls now. Those kids, BTS.
That's right. I have the guy I did was Shiny. I'm going to show you this book. Give me 2 seconds.
That's right. Yeah, I read the name of him.
And there's a guy named Jung Yoon who killed himself, unfortunately, at 27 years old. One of the biggest stars in Korea.
Goodness.
Huge career with the band called Shiny. And this is his album cover, which is, look at that thing.
Whoa.
That's the album.
Whoa. I miss when we used to have like cool artwork like that. Well, never had anything like that.
Like 50 pages. It's like, it's crazy how much they put into these projects. They'll do 50 cameras. What was that the last time they said? The 80 cameras, like literally this far away from each other, so they don't miss any shot.
Wow!
Like they just take it to a whole different level. It's crazy. The first
awesome
hologram video, the hologram musical was actually done there in Korea.
That's amazing. Yeah,
a lot of just amazing stuff. So I find it really enlightening at the same time to work with different people, whatever, female artists, boys groups, K-pop, whatever. And there's always something that you can pull from someplace that you can incorporate someplace else.
But that's not surprising, again, I don't want to keep you forever, but it's interesting because the fact that it seems so like you've done so many things, it makes total sense. You grew up in, I'm assuming with say a Gary U.S. Bonds, whether it's sort of like in more of like an R&B or old school rock and roll kind of way, and then finding yourself in punk rock, and then having your stamp in things like in hard rock, and it's sort of like, I'm not surprised that you would be able to kind of like just be involved in pop, whether it's Korean or Japanese or American. It's like
a good song is a good song.
A good song is a good song. Exactly.
That's where it comes from. And whether it's Japanese, like you said, Korean and stuff, maybe they'll have a few more effects. Maybe they'll have a 16-beat breakdown. Maybe they'll do this or do that. But the bottom line is it's a good chorus that's going to move. It's either it's going to move people or it's not.
Exactly.
Usually that's international.
And that never, exactly. And that never really changes regardless of what genre of music you're playing. And you're not wrong either in terms of like, when you've traveled a lot, like we have, and you've seen a lot of the world is so huge, yet it seems so, like you're just so open to so many different things when you're,
that's the exciting part. That's
Yeah.
To me, that's what it's all, isn't it for you? When you go on the road, isn't it? Open your eyes, go on tour, see this, see a new place, learn new things.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of our career when
Absolutely.
it's working and you can go do that.
Exactly. Well, and hopefully 2021, we'll see.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. So is that your main focus right now? Like, it's speaking about what's to come. Is your main focus just writing, like your book, and writing music?
I'm always writing. Actually, Paul and I from Kiss had a surprise hit not too long ago because I was working with the band called Lordy.
That's
so
right.
I went over
that's right.
there and we wrote like 7 songs in 3 days.
Wow.
We've been talking for 4 years. And then finally I found myself going over to Finland. So we did that.
Sure.
It was great. I met the guys. They're incredible. You should watch some videos and stuff that these guys have. It's out of control.
They're great. Yeah.
Enjoyed that. And they told me the concept of this new album. They said, this album is going to be based on what if we had a hit in 79, 81, 83? What would it be? What would it have sounded like?
Wow.
So they made that record, listen, going through the years. And I said, well, I think I got something for you for like 88, 89. And they're such massive Kiss fans too.
They are, yeah.
I said, it's a song Paul and I wrote. They listened to it, said, it's great. So they released it. It became a single for them.
That's right.
Sell their record to all kinds of things. The highest charting in Germany went to number 13, and it really helped out their thing. I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is like an old song. So now there's a little bit of that happening. I have some different artists taking my old songs, and I'm getting requests for them to release it now as a new single. And the song's like from, 1980 unreleased thing.
But it's the amazing thing about music, because it's really the only way to be immortal. You know what I mean? Like, long after we're gone, your music will still be floating around.
That's right.
And I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I think that there's no such thing as an old song because it's new to somebody. Yeah.
Let me talk about Ramones. I heard Merry Christmas for the past 2 years. It's been played on the Sirius Hits 1 channel. That means Mariah Carey.
Yeah, 100%.
And the Ramones.
Absolutely, yeah.
This song is 35 years old. It's
incredible
that this song is still being
I just did a version of it with my friend Mike Squires. He does this thing called Couch Riffs, which you should get involved in. It's a fun little, it's like a jam thing that we play music remotely from each other. And he goes, let's do a Christmas song. And we had Frankie Clark, who is Gilby Clark's daughter, sing it. She's in a really great band in LA. You can't lose with that song. It's a Christmas song. It'll live on forever.
Matter of fact, today, another weird surprise. Miley Cyrus did this, has her new album, which was #1, and she actually was wearing a Plasmatics T-shirt on the Howard Stern, and then she said,
"I saw that
kind of a replica of one of our Plasmatics records," and she's actually saying this is what she loved. She loved Wendy. She loved the Plasmatics. And I'm like, wow, this is wild. I saw her dancing on YouTube to Merry Christmas. Deal this girl. You watch that video, like it's almost like Wendy relived in a little bit. She's like. You know what I mean?
It is, yeah. I totally agree.
Insight. Yeah. People are gonna say, she's some pop. No. She's got some real stuff in there.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, that's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Well, I can't thank you enough for hanging out and just talking.
No problem. I know there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm gonna hang up and I'm gonna like be sitting in bed tonight, getting ready to go to sleep, and go, damn it, I forgot to ask about whatever.
If that happens.
Part 2.
Exactly. If you miss something important or something, just call me. Let's
absolutely. Well, I hope someday. I mean, we keep threatening on these Kiss cruises, and actually, it was supposed to have happened this last time, and hopefully next time. Bruce and I talk about it all the time because you were supposed to be there.
Yes,
and
exactly.
And we're hoping that you can get up and play all night, or Who Wants to Be Lonely, or whatever.
That's what we talked about. I talked to Paul about it too, and Doc. So yeah, that would be great. So you guys are on board with it. That would be wonderful.
That would be so awesome, dude. Like those Kiss cruises are so much fun, especially if you're a Kiss nerd like me. It's just like it's just Kiss 24 hours a day. So you being there, like I said, they're gonna love to see you. They're gonna be very happy to see you.
Good. And you're okay. Everything's going good with you, and
yeah.
Working
busy,
hard.
busy. Like everything's behind the scenes now. Everything's writing and recording and you know, that sort of thing. So
Plan to go out. You're trying to plan to go out like we all are.
we don't really have any official plans. We're hoping to get a record knocked out this year.
Really
You know, well, I've got multiple records to knock out this year with other projects, but you know, it's that's basically all we can do. And then hopefully,
You're in LA. You're in LA. You live in.
I'm in Vegas. I live in Vegas.
You're in Vegas. Okay. Oh,
Who's that big guy?
hey, mwah. My doggy. My dog. Come here, Rocky. You want to say hello to Todd?
That's Rocky.
Look at that Rocky.
Wow, what is he? Like some kind of like
Great Dane.
Great Dane, of course. Amazing. Wow.
How you doing? Oh, would you want to jump on me? Oh.
Wow, he's big.
He's big. I know. I
love it.
This guy. He's my partner in crime.
That's awesome. Well, either way, I look forward to cross. What's that?
I said it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Absolutely, yeah. I look forward to crossing paths in person for real because that'll be a lot of fun. We'll hopefully be able to pick up some guitars and blow some minds.
Let's do it, and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing some great stuff. And I'd love to hear more of the stuff that you're doing now.
I'll send you the.
Go ahead, yeah.
I'll send you the Christmas Ramones thing that we did. I'll send it to you just to get a laugh.
Oh, that would be great. Okay.
Awesome. Well, have an amazing 2021.
Okay. Say hello to everybody for me too. You know.
I will. Like I said, Slash already said to say hello. So we'll be crossing paths soon enough, I'm sure. Awesome, man. Yeah, you know it. Good to see you, brother. Big love.
Big love to you. All right.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye. You too.